Very good morning to all. Thank you all for finding time and visiting today's
Good morning,
webinar on crisis of civilization and search for a secure future. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all presented here. So, I request Mr. Romen Bora sir, Department of Political Science, Behali Degree College, to give his welcome address. Over to Romen Bora sir.
You are muted. You have to unmute. Mr. Roman, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Bijoy Kumar Misra, one of my colleagues in the Department of Political Science of Behali Degree College. Very good morning to participants and welcome to today's webinar. Respected inaugurator of the webinar, Dr. Jiban Chandra Nath sir, Principal Behali Degree College. Respected research person, Professor Ranjan Datta sir from Goa University, Head of the Department of Political Science. Respected Dr. Mohan Bora, Assistant Professor of the Department of Political Science in Assam University, Silchar, who will took part as the reporter of this webinar. Respected other dignitaries participating from different parts of Assam, Northeast, and India. Respected IQAC coordinator, Dr. Bijay Bhandu, my dear colleagues from our college, and all other participants participating from different parts of Assam and India. At the outset of my welcome address, I convey my warm welcome to all of you. At the outset, I would like to tell something about our college. Behali Degree College, established in 1989, is a premier educational institution in Bishwanath district, Assam, which is located in a rural area in the Legislative Assembly constituency. Having both science and art stream, there are about 1,200 students and more than 50 members combining both teaching and non-teaching categories. Considering the absence of any educational institution in Behali Legislative Assembly constituency, and considering the improvement of academic scenario, this college has to being with arts as a and artistic and academically conscious personalities of the locality. So at the outset, I would like to bow my head to those persons who are not alive now in this auspicious occasion. After addition of science stream in 2020, the college presently has become able to enlighten humanity up to the new horizons of greater academia. Political Science Department is one of the departments evolved after the establishment of Behali College. There are 4 faculty members in the department striving to flourish it as a platform where students can attain necessary skills in their life. Apart from earning formal education, Most of the passed out students of this department have become able to serve the cause of the society in different fields of life. Keeping glory of the department, the students continuously achieve splendid success every year. Today, we are organizing this webinar on the title Crisis of Civilization and Search for a Secure Future. Human civilization has faced different kinds of catastrophe in different times of history. There were some problems which are already exist, like environmental pollution, global warming, food crisis, poverty, apprehension of nuclear warfare, extreme climate change, etc., which bring crisis to human civilization. In the meantime, the COVID-19 has been brought out and created pandemic situation for the last 2 years throughout the world. COVID-19 pandemic has tremendous effect not only on human health but also in economy, politics, social relationships, academic field, and so on and so forth. On this backdrop, the title of today's webinar has been selected with a view to delve into the matter of civilization crisis and how to have a secure future. We think our learned participants will be able to surmise through the illuminating speech of the resource person, who is a prolific writer and speaker on various such issues faced by the society from time to time. Again, I convey my warm welcome to all and conclude my welcome speech here. Thank you all. I'd like to request all the participants so that the speaker mics should be muted when they not speak, and during interaction part they can participate in the webinar by unmuting their mic. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ramen Vora sir, for your valuable and most appreciable welcome speech. Now I request Dr. Jivan Chandra Nath sir, Principal Behali Degree College, to give his inaugural speech. Over to Dr. Jivan Chandra Nath sir, Principal Behali Degree College.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay Mishra, Assistant Professor, Behali Degree College. Good morning, everyone. Webinar on Crisis of Civilization and Search for a Secure Future, organized by Department of Political Science, Behali Degree College, in association with IQAC, Behali Degree College, and ICT Academy. Respected resource person of the webinar, Professor Dr. Akhil Ranjan Datta, Head of the Department of Political Science, Guwahati University, Vice Principal and Head of the Department, Mr. Ramen Bora, Coordinator IQAC, Dr. Vijay Mandal, Narendra Kumar, Senior Manager, ICT Academy, Subhas Upadhyay, Relationship Manager, ICT Academy, and all the participants of the webinar. I am very happy to inform you all that Behali Degree College was established in 1989 and it is a government provincialized college It is affiliated to Guwahati University and recognized under 2F and 12B of UGC Act 1956. Department of Political Science was established in 1991, is one of the oldest department of the college. At present, there are 4 permanent teachers and they work hard to provide quality teaching to the students of the department. Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta, head of the Department of Political Science, Guwahati University, is an eminent academician of Assam. He has a rich contribution in academic research, socio-political field, and human rights related issues. He is a reputed writer and has been contributing high quality books, writings in national and international journal. His article on current issues published in regional newspapers on regular basis are of a high relevance. Behali Degree College extends high gratitude and thankfulness to Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta for accepting our invitation. His speech on crisis of civilization and search for a secure future is going to enlighten all the participants on such a relevant and important topic. I request all the participants to actively cooperate during the webinar. Hereby, I declare to inauguration of the webinar and conclude my inaugural speech. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Jivan Chandra Nath sir, Principal Behali Degree College, for a warm inaugural speech. Now, just a little housekeeping before we started. If you have any question during the presentation, please type them into the chat box. We will bring them up during the presentation if necessary, or we will also have time for question at the end. To keep the quality of sound functional during the meeting, please mute yourself when you are not sharing. I may also mute the room if necessary, but please remember to unmute when you wish to share. Now, I request Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta sir to enlighten us with valuable words on our webinar on crisis of civilization and search for secure future. Over to Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta sir for presenting his paper. Over to Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta sir.
Good morning, everyone, and warm welcome to my presentation. I take the privilege to express my sense of gratitude for inviting me to interact with you on a very, very important theme, which I have framed as crisis of civilization, search for a secure future. Is my voice audible to you? Am I
Yes, sir.
audible? Okay. Honorable Principal Dr. Nath, Vice Principal Mr. Bora, Mr. Mishra, entire family of Behali Degree College, I think ICT Academy, members from the ICT Academy, students, and invited guests and friends. This is a very, very important moment in history, which I have called a crisis moment for human civilization. I have a presentation ready. I'll go back to that so that it becomes easy for the students to follow me. But before that, let me summarize the important issues that I'll be trying to highlight. Friends and colleagues, as I have said that this is a crisis moment in human civilization. We could never think that a moment in our life will arrive at which will completely paralyze human mobility, our search for knowledge, solidarity, meeting, gatherings, welcoming our guests and friends. We could never imagine that such a moment will arrive in our lifetime. This is truly a moment of crisis of civilization. I'll try to explain the nature of this crisis, but before that, let me bring you some of the very interesting insights being given by some of the very eminent personalities whom we can call the builder of civilization, architect of civilization. Let us remember what Gandhi said, Mahatma Gandhi, way back in 1909. All of you know that there's a very important book written by Gandhi, Hind Swaraj. Now, Hind Swaraj is a very interesting book in the sense the way the book has been written, the way the book has been arranged. In 1909, Gandhi was in South Africa. He was traveling, or he came to London because he was an advocate. He was a barrister, and issues relating to some of the cases which were happening. That was also British colony, South Africa. Therefore, there were some issues for which, as a barrister, as an advocate, Gandhi had to travel to London. And he was traveling by sea. While going back, he was thinking about what kind of struggle, what kind of movements that India had been pursuing for the achievement of independence, and also to build a new nation. What kind of nationalism that India was looking for, or India was thinking about, India was perceiving. And on that theme, he was writing the book called Hind Swaraj. You can call it self-determination or right to self-determination. And as I said, that the book is very interesting. It is written in a dialogue form. It's not exactly written as a book. It was in the dialogue form, in the sense that there are two characters in the book. One is a reader, other is an editor. In other words, it's perceived like a interaction between the editor of a newspaper or journal or magazine and that of a reader. And very interestingly, both the characters were Gandhi. In a way, it was a self-dialoguing, atmo-kathon. It happens in our life at various moments when we are sitting, in a room, lonely, without having companion. We keep on asking ourselves a lot of questions. We keep on asking, whatever things that we are doing the right things? Are we moving in the proper direction? Are we really thinking a better future in a proper way, and so on and so forth? So self-dialoguing, in a way, is a human trait. We keep on asking ourselves a lot of questions. And Gandhi adopted that particular methodology to reflect on civilization, to reflect on nationalism. As I said, there are two characters. One was the reader and other was the editor. And the reader was raising a lot of questions. And it was written in a small stationary compartment of the ship that he was traveling through, where he was traveling back. Very interesting questions were raised, and one of the important questions, of course, was civilization. And what is that civilization he was thinking about? And he reflected on European civilization. He said that this is a civilization only in name. This is not a true civilization. When he said that this is a civilization only in the name, and it is not a true civilization, he must have had some understanding of the kind of civilizations
that he himself was, envisioning, he himself was thinking about. But when he said that European civilization is a civilization only in name, he was basically telling that this civilization is centered on, commodities, centered on pursuit of power, centered on pursuit of, material things. It doesn't have anything to do with, the moral, human, values of values. It doesn't talk about tolerance, accommodation, or the distribution of resources, decentralization, and so on and so on, but talks mostly. And he had a lot of issues to deal with. I'm just giving you the very substance of very, core themes of that particular book. But the central point he pointed out, the kind of European civilization that we have witnessed doesn't promise a future. It doesn't have a future. It will get self-destructed because of its pursuit of power, pursuit of commodities, and so on and so forth. Remember 1909, the First World War was yet to happen, Second World War was far away, and even the economic depression of 1930. Now, when he said about all these things, he reminded us that the kind of nationalism that we have been pursuing, that has to have a different vision. We have to envision a new civilization through the freedom struggles or through the nationalism that we have been talking about. Now, this is a very fundamental thing he said. The second thing, also remember, he said, so many other things he said. For example, he had definite view on medicine and medical practices. He had definite view even on, transportation and communication, and particularly on the legal profession. Legal profession means advocates and others. And he was very critical about that. And he was telling all these professions, including the medical fraternity or medical practitioners, on for that matter, the legal profession, advocates and all, they also, rather than helping the people who are in distress, they try to make profit out of the distress, and so on and so forth. So in a way, he was very critical of the European civilization by that, the very development process, centralized development process, even of the nation state system, which is very, very, organized and very, very centralized in nature. Rabindranath Tagore, he died in 1941, and it was in May 1941. I think he was 90. It was his last birthday, and every birthday he used to send some messages. Now, in that last speech, last message to the humanity, the global community, on the occasion of his last birthday, he presented us a speech that has been titled as Crisis of Civilization. I'll not go into the depth of it. And he was grossly disappointed because that was a moment the Second World War was there. Countries, nations, European nations, countries were fighting against each other. One country was invading the other. Ugly nature of the European civilization, ugly nature of the conflict was unfolding. So he was telling that it was a moment of crisis in civilization. Remember, before that, in 1916, 17, during that period also, Rabindranath Tagore was talking about the kind of, civilizational issues that we have been confronting, or the global community had been confronting. And one of the important issues that he highlighted was the very notion of nation and nationalism. And he was very critical about it. But he also pointed out that nation, it's an ugly manifestation of power, ugly manifestation of centralization of power, and pursuit of commodity, and so on and so forth. Now, this was crisis, again, a crisis of civilization. Remember, the anti-colonial struggles that Gandhi was referring to had a different vision of civilization. The nationalism that India was endeavoring to build, it was something different from the European nationalism, in the sense that European civilization was centered on commodity, pursuit of commodity. And that pursuit of commodity had linkages with capitalism. And that capitalism resulted in expansion, constant pursuit of commodities, which resulted in colonialism, imperialism, and so on and so forth. Now, if we look at critically, one of the important books, or one very important masterpiece of European nationalism and European civilization, is one by Adam Smith, titled, and all of you know it, Wealth of Nation, and Inquiry into the Nature of Wealth of Nation. Now, Wealth of Nation was considered to be fundamental in building a nation. Wealth of nation. You have to, accumulate wealth to build a nation, symbolically speaking, or metaphorically speaking. Now, India, for that matter, many third world countries, because they were fighting against because they were fighting against the colonialism, or in other words, the very framework of pursuit of commodity and power. Therefore, they were pursuing a different kind of civilization, a different kind of nation and nationalism. Professor Pravat Patnaik and others have pointed out that, therefore, when we talk of nationalism, we need to remember that there are two models of nationalism, two kinds of nationalism. Am I still audible? Is there any problem? Biraj, you have to take care of your device. You keep on you keep on presenting. Yes. So Bora, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So remember, so when India was striving for nationalism, anti-colonial struggle, that was a different kind of civilization that they were thinking, and that civilization was centered on what is called people. So this is a people-centric civilization as against the wealth-centric civilization of the European countries. So that was Gandhi's vision of civilization. In fact, that was possible because the anti-colonial struggle, if you look at, started long before the Indian National Congress was formed in 1885. You can look at the protest being built up by very common people, tribal people, poor people, peasantry particularly, tribal peasantry particularly, in different parts of the country, like the one in Nagaon, Fulaguri Dewa. They're fighting against the colonial appropriation of resources. Look at Potoru Ghator Rod, look at rice mill, look at different kind of other resistance which were built up. Why did they do it? Because they realized that the colonial regime is centered on accumulation of resources, accumulation of commodities, even at the cost of human life. Therefore, the peasants came up, poor peasants, tribal peasants in case of Fulaguri Dewa, they came up and protested against it. And the protest against colonialism was really widespread. The official history of Indian nationalism at many instances do not record the contributions of the small resistance movements. Therefore, the subaltern historiography came up. Ranajit Guha and many others have built up the subaltern historiography. How very common people, women, peasants, farmers, youth, tribal people, industrial workers were protesting in nook and corner against the colonial resistance. I keep on referring to one significant issue. I come from a relatively backward place, Dhokwa Khana, in the Lakhimpur district. In Dhokwa Khana, the police station was established in 1857. So it reminds me, or it takes me to history. How did it happen? The very remote corner of the state or the country, a place like Dhokwa Khana, people have forced the colonial government to establish a police station. Had there been no resistance there, probably there would have been no police station there. I am telling you all these things to bring to your notice the fact that the civilization or the nationalism that Indian people were envisioning for the future, it was something different from European civilization. And European civilization, as I said, were driven by capitalism, pursuit of wealth, and our nationalism, Indian nationalism, and it is also applicable in case of many third world countries. Our nationalism was driven by people's aspiration, people's resistance against colonial exploitation, appropriation of resources. So these civilizational differences or civilizational parameters need to be kept in mind. Now, there's a very interesting book on 20th century history, and this is written by someone called Eric J. Hobsbawm. Eric J. Hobsbawm, of course, is a Marxist historian. He is also known as a historian who writes total history. History, it's not only enumeration of the significant developments where king or queen or president or prime minister are part of the processes, but also common people's aspirations and how different movements were taking place, whether in Europe or in many other countries. Now, he has a series on modern history, and it starts with age of revolution, industrial revolution, and many other revolutions that, including Renaissance, that took place in Europe. Then age of capital, then age of empire, how imperialism was built. And the fourth volume is very significant. Of course, there are another volume, the new century, but then fourth volume is interesting, and it is titled Age of Extremes. Age of Extremes. Now, Age of Extremes is a very interesting book, and the subtitle of the book is Short 20th Century History. Now, 20th century has been very, very interesting in human civilization. I think 20th century has been the most eventful century in human history, human civilization. It was remarkably, revolutionary in nature. Revolutionary not in the sense of armed struggles and movements that I'm talking about. There was revolution in every domain, whether it is technology, healthcare, education, fashion, food, entertainment, everywhere you find a revolution in the 20th century. What could we imagine in 19th century became the reality in the 20th century. But it was also marked by lot of developments, lot of events that created a lot of havoc in the history of 20th century. First World War, Second World War, economic depression, Cold War, socialist revolution. Look at Vietnam War. Look at Cuban crisis. Look at Indo-Pak crisis. Everywhere. So it was marked by a lot of events, lot of developments, age of extremes. Along with it, women movements, ecological movements, transgender movements, colored people's movements in United States of America, university students fighting against Vietnam War, Gulf War, Saddam Hussein, so many developments took place in 20th century. Therefore, it is called Age of Extremes. Now, this century also was marked by, as was the case with Gandhi, as was the case with Rabindranath, there was also a search for a new civilization. Look at Jyoti Prasad Agrawala, for example, in Assam. Look at many, Bhupen Hazarika, look at Vishnu Raba, look at Keshab Mohanto, look at Khoghen Mohanto, everyone. Hemango Biswas, IPTA, Indian People's Theatre Movement. Look at, there was a new vision, new search for a new civilization. Very interesting. Joyo Alukomoy, Onadi Onanta Prohari, Vishwa Jivanajyoti. Let there be victory of light, transcending all boundaries. Or Bhupen Hazarika, look at, Moyeti Zazabor. Look at transcending boundaries. He was going everywhere. Moyeti Zazabor, Dihinga Dipange Dori Furisu, Nibisari Nija Ghor. I'm not looking for where is my home. What I'm looking for is people, friendship, solidarity in every nook and corner of the world. Very interesting. Now, Amartya Sen has written a very interesting, that is his memoir, an autobiography in a way. The title, World is My Home. World is my home. Very interesting. And he has talked about, Amartya Sen was born and brought up in different places, in Dhaka, in Burma, and he was educated in Santiniketan, the school established by Rabindranath Tagore. And very interesting. Now, he has exposure to different, he still holds the Indian citizenship, but he travels all around the world and stays most of the time, almost all the time, except for 1 or 2 occasions in a year when he come back to India, Santiniketan. Otherwise, he lives either in England or Europe, other countries of Europe or United States of America, and so on and so forth. Now, this is a very interesting memoir, autobiography. He is talking about civilization. He's talking about Burma. He's talking about other countries. He has also been confronting with some of the theories of civilization. There's a very eminent social scientist of the United States of America, Samuel Huntington. Samuel Huntington has a very interesting book. First, it came as an essay in 1993, I think, then as a book later on, Clash of Civilizations, where he was telling that now there is growing conflict. Okay, I can share the PPT, but then that will not make it interesting. Let me speak, then the flow continues. Therefore, I'm not sharing it. I can say it's ready, but then I think I'm in a position to communicate my points. Is it? Am I making the things extremely boring? Am I making the things very difficult?
No, sir. Very light.
Okay, good. So when you look at Amartya Sen's memoir, then he talks about very interesting things. Even not only that, he has a lot of other books. There's an interesting report of UNDP, United Nations Development Program, titled Cultural Liberty in Today's Diverse World, published in 2004, UNDP Human Development Report 2004. There also he confronted with these issues, civilization and other. Now, what I'm pointing out, that when you talk about civilization, it's not a civilization defined by Europe or singularly defined by some countries. It's a different vision. Now, if you take Gandhi, if you take Rabindranath, for that matter, if you take Amartya Sen, if you take Bhupen Hazarika, Jyoti Prasad, Vishnu Rabha, Kekho Mohanto, Kogen Mohanto, Hemango Vishwas, look at how was it built up. Look at Bhupen Hazarika's very beautiful songs composed on Arunachal, tribal communities of Arunachal. Look at when he said, Moi dekhisu bohu gagan sumbi ottalikar hari tar saate dekhisu kotona grihohin noronari. I have seen, huge, vertically moving buildings, attalikas. But then you also see homeless people around, the contradiction. And therefore he said, Manuhe Manuhar Babe. So many other things. Aji Mondiro Duar Khula. Look at, if you look at, see Vishnu Rama, Aji Mondiro Duar Khula. Otherwise, or when he talks about Shankardeva, O Pujari Adori, and a lot of other things. So the civilization that they talked about, that needs to be centered on humanity. That needs to be centered on the balance between the ecology and the humanity. If you have a rupture between ecology and humanity, then civilization will be at loss. And the rupture will come if the civilization is based on pursuit of wealth. Therefore, if you look at Amartya Sen, he was also constantly reminding us that civilization cannot be a dominant, hegemonic civilization. It has different colors, different characters. Look at Mamuni Roysom Goswami. Now, Mamuni Roysom Goswami was telling us something very, very interesting. Look at Ramayana, for example. I'll be out of track. That's my nature. I cannot keep myself confined to a single track. And that's the problem with me. If you look at Mamuni Roysom Goswami, for example, she was talking about Ramayana. And she was telling that Ramayana has different versions depending on the culture that you live in. And a dominant theme in Ramayana is that Sita is a relatively powerless woman, and she is being put into test by Ramchandra, which gives you a very patriarchal kind of character. But there are some places, some communities where Sita is very powerful. Sita is really, really powerful. And Sita is the real hero. Even commanding Ramchandra what to do and so on and so forth. It depends on the particular culture that you live in. You must have seen a particular dance from the Boru community, the Ranachandi Nritya. The Ranachandi is a very interesting dance form where, when the male folk preparing to go to a war, they are being trained by women. Who are the trainers for the warriors? The trainers are the women. So, this is interesting that civilization has to be conceived in its plurality, not in the singular form. So Gandhi was talking about it. Rabindranath was talking about it. In a way, Eric Hobsbawm was also pointing out that, although he has not dealt with it so comprehensively, but he reminded us that the commodity-centric European civilization, which resulted in the First World War, Second World War, and also the economic depression, took a radical shift in the post-war period, 1945 onwards. United Nations was established. And remember, United Nations founding principle is, founding document is, one of the founding pillars is Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And the founding principle of Universal Declaration of Human Rights is right to life with dignity. Now, dignity is the foundation of human civilization. If you are thinking in terms of building peace in the world, human dignity has to be protected, and dignity needs to be understood in comprehensive terms. So this is civilization. There were dominant themes of civilization, dominant parameters of civilization, and there were alternative vision of civilization. And the alternative vision came through the people's struggles, people's movements. I'll remind you something very interesting about the South African Constitution. All of you know that South Africa had to struggle against the apartheid, and Nelson Mandela was kept in jail for so many years, 30 plus years, 37 years, I think. When the apartheid came to an end and they framed their constitution, one of the important fundamental rights recognized by that constitution was right to silence. Now, this is very interesting, right to silence. What is that right to silence? That you cannot be forced to be witnessed against yourself. When the apartheid was there, they were tortured, they were arrested, and they were made witness against themselves. As we see in the Hindi movies, that somebody is being arrested and then tortured, then they are forced to be witnessed among themselves that I have committed this crime and so on and so forth. Now, in case of South Africa, the constitution recognized that you cannot do it. Right to silence is also a fundamental right. Anyway, now all these have forced us to look for a new civilization. And that new civilization resulted in, search for different visions and how to build up our nation, how to build up our civilization, so on and so forth. In case of India, the constitution itself is an embodiment of that search for new civilization, which starts with the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India, so on and so forth, and dedicate it or give it to ourselves. So we and ourselves as the foundation of the new civilization that India was looking for. And if you look at the Constituent Assembly debates, and it gives you a lot of interesting insights about this new civilization. I'll just remind you, I think I'm making it too long. I'll gradually wind up. If you look at the Constituent Assembly debates, I'll just give you one reference. All of you know that it started in December 1946 and it was completed in November 1949, 26 November. So this was almost 3 years of exercise. And the exercise was happening at different levels. I'll not go into that. But I'll point out about the objective resolution being moved by Nehru. So Nehru moved the resolution and it talked about the fundamental principles that India will go in for, the new nation or new country or new independent India, which will be built up. And that was elaborated by Nehru. And there was a long debate, including from our own region, particularly Assam. Nicholas Roy was also a member in the Constituent Assembly. He was raising the concerns of in Assam, particularly the Group C proposal, cabinet mission proposal was still under consideration at that point. But one member, very important member, sitting in the Constituent Assembly was B.R. Ambedkar. Now, B.R. Ambedkar, he participated in that objective resolution debate quite late. But then he raised a very interesting question. He said that the objective resolution raised by Panditji, Nehruji, that's very interesting, that's very important. It has talked about the principles, but principles are not good enough. How do we translate those principles and values into reality? So, in other words, we need the means to translate the vision into reality, the principles into reality, the values into reality. And all of you know, he became the chairperson of the drafting committee of the Constitution. And now we have fundamental rights and all directive principles of state policy. In other words, then also we have non-alignment movement, Afro-Asian solidarity, Bandung Conference of 1955, Belgrade Conference of 1961, Havana Conference, and so on and so forth. Also, we had, new international economic order. I can tell you a lot of stories, but I'll not go into the details of it. All these have made a new world order. We had gone in for welfare state. We had gone in for a lot of people's movements, ecological movements, business movements, and so on and so forth. And lot of initiatives were undertaken, declaring that health for all will be a slogan. United Nations took a lot of initiatives for ecological preservation, ecological environmental security, art summits, and so on and so forth. But that didn't continue for long. The process came to an end. A building of a new civilization, the vision of a new civilization at one point came to an end. And that resulted in what we call globalization, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, LPC. And globalization is based on a principle or ideology called neoliberalism. And what is neoliberalism? I call it market fundamentalism. It's not me which is telling it, market fundamentalism. Remember when I was talking about new vision of civilization, remember your own college. Remember a lot of colleges being established in India. Who established them? In Assam. Who established Guwahati University? Who contributed? Own people, people of the community, collective ownership, But LPG started and gradually all those were dismantled. Provincialization of colleges could be one of the steps to delink the educational institutions from the community. A rupture. LPG brought about a civilizational rupture, neoliberalism, market fundamentalism, so on and so forth. Privatization. A lot of debates are happening today that consider education to be a competitive individual pursuit rather than a collective egalitarian pursuit. Remember, when Behali College was established, what was the vision? That education for all, collective, egalitarian, communitarian. And when a private university is established, private academy is established, what is the vision? Profit, individual competitiveness, exclusive class, so on and so forth. Therefore, the civilizational crisis of civilization again started. Not that post-Second World War period was a very happy moment in human civilization, but it brought about some changes, fundamental changes in human thinking. Now things have changed. Now, along with market fundamental, the market will decide. Gopinath Bordoloi International Airport, that will be taken care of by some private companies. BSNL will be gradually sold out. You never know what will happen to your college and my university. We are not very sure about. Now, this is civilizational crisis. And that civilizational crisis, I think, has a lot of bearing on the current pandemic moment that we have been witnessing today. Pandemic probably otherwise would have also come, but we would have been in a position to handle it properly had there been that pursuit of new civilization, had it been very strong, consolidated, thinking more in terms of decentralized benefits, decentralized infrastructure, decentralized healthcare services, educational services, thinking more in terms of taking care of giving due dignity, right to dignity, right to life with dignity that UNDP talked about, giving dignity to the migrants. Migrants, they have been contributing a lot towards the growth of the economy, expansion of the economy. From Assam itself, around 10 lakh young boys particularly had gone to Kerala, had gone to Maharashtra, Telangana, other places, Tamil Nadu, to earn their livelihood. But then that has also contributed towards building the economy. Same is the case with poor labor community, particularly from the southern part of, western part of Assam, coming to the cities and helping, for the construction of roads and other things. But the new theory, civilizational conflict that has been put into place, now condemn them, that they don't want to give dignity to them. So you have the market fundamentalism, market deciding everything. Also now, social fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism of different religions, not necessarily of single religion. All these have made our situation more and more worried. Look at, this is a pandemic. We are not very secure about what will happen to human lives. And look at what the assembly has been doing. Rather than taking up human security, people's security, the new bill has been placed, tabled in the assembly, which is of cattle protection, cow protection. Not that we don't need cow protection, that is important. But to protect cow, you have to have strong foundation of the veterinary services. Is it that strong in the state? Those things have not been taken care of. So now look at the debates which are coming up. Schools have been closed down, universities have been closed down. You don't have opportunities of human interactions. We are becoming more and more technology driven and technology obsessive. Things are very, very critical. That moment, this moment I call human civilization. Now, how do we come out of it? We have to go back, the new vision, which was there in Gandhi, which was there in Rabindranath, which was there in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was there in the community initiative for establishing the Behali College, community initiative for establishing Guwahati University, community initiative for establishing the schools and other institutions that you and I have studied. Look back, when I look back myself, had there been no public institutions, would I have been, had it been possible for me to be here in the university? My father, teacher, primary school teacher, wouldn't have been in a position to afford the schooling for me, or college education and university education for me. But I have studied throughout my life in a public institution. Same is not the case with my children today. Therefore, many people ask, you are sending your children to the private school. Why are you questioning the private schools? No, that's not the question. I have been put into a place where I can afford, and I have been forced to do it. But what will happen to my brother? What will happen to my sister? What will happen to their children? So inequality is becoming too, encompassing, creating new challenges for human civilization. So therefore, when we look at search for a new future, secure future, we need to bring in these all important issues. I think I have spoken for quite a long time. Let me stop here. If there are questions, I can address them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for giving your valuable insight on the topic crisis of civilization. So with that, we will go ahead and take some time for question. Yes, participants, you can unmute and ask question to our resource person, Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta sir, and also we will have some suggestion between that. Yes.
I don't think that there'll be question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think that is the valuable words and the treasury of knowledge from our Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta sir. We people all are sitting silently and listening very peacefully. Now, I ask Mr. Roman Bora sir to give a brief summary on the presentation of Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta sir. Yale. I think Raman Bora sir is not able to connect due to some technical problem. So in a short period of time, he will be.
Okay, কাৰোবাৰ যদি কিবা প্ৰশ্ন আছে আপোনালোকে অসমীয়াটো সুধিব পাৰে, এনেকুৱা কথা নাই, ইংৰাজীতে সুধিব লাগিব। মই ইংৰাজীত কলো কাৰণ গোটেই অনুষ্ঠানটো ইংৰাজীতে আৰম্ভ হ'ল। যদি কাৰোবাৰ কিবা আছে জানিব লগা হেৰি কৰিম। I don't think that there is any question. You can go ahead.
Yes, sir, I do
Yes.
think. So,
Yes.
Roman sir. Yes, over to Roman Bora sir.
Thank you, research person Professor Datta sir, for giving the very valuable and thought-provoking speech on the crisis of civilization and search for a secure future. Uh, he has delineated throughout his speech many examples, citing from history, from Mahatma Gandhi, from Rabindranath Tagore, to many other international events he has mentioned. And by mentioning all these events and eminent personalities and eminent books written by eminent personalities and authors, he has given a very thought-provoking and illuminating speech on the crisis of human civilization. I think that uh, through his speech, valuable speech delivered by Professor Datta sir, we can have a secure future by following all these thoughts given by Professor Datta sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, Roman Bora sir. Now, I request Rumi Soikia, Department of Political Science, Behali Degree College, to convey vote of thanks.
Thank you, Vijayda. Good afternoon, everyone, to the one and all present here. Honorable Resource Person, Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta sir, respected reporter, Dr. Mohan Bora sir, respected Principal, Dr. Jiban Chandra Nath sir, Coordinator of IQAC, Dr. Vijay Mandal sir, all head of the department, all the teaching and non-teaching staff of Behali Degree College, Relationship Manager of ICT Academy, Mr. Subhas Upadhyaya, and all the participants come from the various parts. It is such an honor for me to get the opportunity to thank you all dignitaries. On behalf of the Political Science Department, Behali Degree College, I would like to express my gratitude to all esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. I extend my gratitude to our Honorable Resource Person, Professor Datta sir, to take out time from his busy schedule to grace the event. Thank you, sir, for your inspiring and encouraging us with your words on this special day. A special thanks to our principal, sir, for providing immense support to make the webinar successful. And also thanks to ICT Academy for your technical support. I must thank to head of the department, Roman Bora sir, Vibhuti Nath sir, and Bijoy Mishra sir of our department for working hard for the past few days to make the webinar successful. Thank you everyone once again for making it a great success. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Rumi Soikia, for giving the vote of thanks to every participant, including the research person. And I think you are also thankful for giving the thanks and gratitude to all the participants of today's webinar.
So, thank you, participants, Rumi Soikia, including the members of Behali Degree College, and because of the support and cooperation from the administration of Behali Degree College, and also from the Department of Political Science, Guwahati University, Professor Akhil Ranjan Datta sir, we are very pleased for having such an enlightened words and concept based on crisis of civilization, which is a burning issue because all around the world and also in our regional part, people are fighting for regions. But we are in present arena, we must go for saving humanism. Many problems are there, but in spite of all, we must try to establish prosperity and development for our future generation. Thank you, participants from Assam and also counterparts of India for making us pleased by participating in our webinar and getting time to visit our webinar. Thank you all.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much. It was a great, moment for me also. And I thank you all for providing this opportunity, particularly to the principal, Dr. Nath. And I had been to your college, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years back, and hope to see you in person. Let the normalcy come back,
Yes, sir.
and we'll meet you
Yes,
in
yes.
person. So thank you all, and I'll take leave because we have another program in the department after some time. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
sir.
Thank you,
Have a
Dr.
nice
Nath,
Thank you,
yes,
sir.
and Mr. Bora. Okay,
Okay, sir.
yeah, thank you very much. I'm taking leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a pleasure being with you all today. And participant, please fill up the feedback form and for getting the certificate of the webinar. And if any mistakes took place, so we are here to help you out of the problem. So thank you all.